The UK is on a path towards making electric vehicles the main mode of transport of the future. On the 3rd of January 2024, the government passed the Zero Emission Vehicle Mandate into law. This has provided both the public and the car industry with a clear view on the government's intentions and plans for the future of EVs in the country. The UK government is keen to get as many EVs on the road and as many petrol and diesel cars off the road as possible. However, this does not mean that wide-scale EV adoption is a certainty. There are still many factors affecting the decision for UK drivers on whether to switch to an electric vehicle, which needs to be addressed. In this video, we will look at the new mandate and analyse the main factors affecting electric vehicle adoption in the UK, so that we can get a better idea of the current situation and the plans for the future transition to EVs. Make sure to stay till the end of the video if you are deciding whether to make the switch and purchase an electric vehicle yourself. So let's get into it. The ZEV Mandate. After lengthy consultations with the car industry and environmentalists, the government has now set out the rules regarding the sales of cars in the UK moving forward. The mandate requires that a rising percentage of individual manufacturers' total annual sales in the UK must be zero emissions vehicles. It starts with a 22% of sales requirement for 2024, rising to 80% by 2030, then 100% by 2035. The targets for commercial vehicles are set lower, with only 10% of new vans sold required to be electric this year. In the early years of the ZEV mandate, car makers who fail to meet their targets can trade credits from those who do. However, in the future, those who fail to hit the targets, or who can't trade their way out of a shortfall, will face potentially heavy financial penalties for every non-compliant vehicle sold. This is a major step which will affect the car industry in a big way, both for EVs and petrol and diesel cars. Many major car manufacturers will have to make adjustments quickly and put a lot more money into the promotion of electric vehicles. Due to these new regulations, the Department for Transport has declared that the UK now has the most ambitious regulatory framework for the switch to electric vehicles of any country in the world. The mandate also falls in line with the government's plan to ban the sale of all new petrol and diesel cars by 2035, meaning car makers will have no choice but to sell EVs in the UK. Companies and the public alike seem to be on board with these plans. However, in the real world, there will be many big changes required to make this work, and it will need a lot of money. Eventually, consumers will have no choice but to get on board with the EV push. But there are still many factors which are and will affect the consumer's decisions moving forward. So let's start with the most important, the price of electric vehicles. One of the main issues affecting the UK public when it comes to purchasing an EV is the price tag. In general, it's true that electric cars are more expensive than their combustion engined equivalents. And for a country experiencing both a recession and a cost of living crisis due to inflation, buying a brand new electric vehicle is not at the forefront of many people's minds. The UK government did run a grant scheme for the purchase of electric vehicles, called the Plug-in Grant, which allowed sellers to reduce the price at the point of sale. However, this ended in June 2022 for the purchase of cars, but still exists for the purchase of vans, mopeds and taxis. Luckily for the UK public, there are two factors which are starting to reduce the prices of EVs, which should improve the affordability moving forward. Firstly, the ZEV mandate is having an unintended consequence of bringing prices down. Since manufacturers are now required to sell a certain amount of EVs in order to avoid huge fines, sellers are reducing prices in a desperate attempt to attract enough buyers to meet the legislation. This could hopefully lead to some sizable discounts on new electric cars. Another factor pushing down prices is the increased supply of new cheaper EVs coming out of China. Companies like BYD are introducing many cheaper models, and this has forced the global market leader, Tesla, to reduce its own prices in order to compete. Many other car companies are starting to follow suit. For the UK, this should lead to a greater supply of cheaper electric cars and lower prices in the future. Battery charging. The second issue which is affecting the adoption of EVs is battery charging. Filling up a car with fuel is easy, however charging an electric car can be a little more complicated. In the UK, there are 3 basic ways to charge an electric car: at home, at work, or at a public charging point. The installation of a home charging point currently costs around £800, although the government does provide a charge point grant to people living in flats to cover up to £350 of their cost. There is also the workplace charging scheme, which allows grants for companies to install charge points for their employees. These grants provide up to £300 per socket for up to 40 sockets. Both of these financial incentives may help speed up EV adoption. However, the most important factor in persuading the public to purchase an EV will be the nationwide charging network, which will allow people to drive all across the UK without fear of running out of battery. It is essential that these charging stations are always within reach, and this will require a huge investment and a large build-out of infrastructure. Currently, the charging infrastructure in the UK has mostly been provided by private companies, who charge pay-as-you-go rates to the public and even offer membership schemes in order to use their services at a discount. Some of the largest providers of charge points across the UK is BP Pulse, Instavolt, Ionity, Shell Recharge, and of course Tesla Supercharger. However, there are many more. On top of this, the UK government has allocated money to increase the build-out of public charge points, with initiatives like local electric vehicle infrastructure funding being offered to councils. The UK's charging network continues to grow at pace. There are now over 50,000 public charge points, with 44% more than this time last year, putting the country well on track to reach the government target of 300,000 charge points by 2030. The certainty of the ZEV mandate will hopefully give industry renewed confidence to invest in British infrastructure. Rapid price depreciation. The final factor affecting the British public is the huge price depreciation of EVs. The well-respected company Auto Trader said that there were unsustainable levels of depreciation in the electric car market, with used prices of battery-powered vehicles dropping by 23% in the last year alone. They also warned that residual values of electric cars remain unsustainably low. Although this has made people hesitant to purchase a new EV, this could be great news for the second-hand car market, as people could potentially get high-quality vehicles for bargain prices. Auto Trader has said that in 2024, thousands of motorists will return vehicles acquired on 3-year leases, which is going to increase the supply at dealerships. They said, with over 800,000 new cars registered between 2020 and 2023, supply returning to the used car market will only increase in 2024, and if demand does not keep up, electric cars could depreciate even further, undermining both consumer and retailer confidence. When this is added to the wave of new Chinese cars coming into the market, and the forced reduction in prices caused by the ZEV mandate, there is a good chance that EVs will become much more affordable for the general public. Although the future of EVs in the UK is not certain, it is now clear where the government stands. There are many ifs and buts involved, but since the government now has a clear plan and intention, it is becoming increasingly likely that both companies and the public will get on board. There is now a much higher chance that electric vehicles will be the main mode of transport in the future. If you enjoy this type of content and would like to know more about the most important economic trends affecting our world, make sure to subscribe to the T15 report. If you know anyone who would like this video, then please share it. Alright guys, thanks so much for watching and I'll see you on the next one.